Welcome to Soul Soldier Speaks, where we honor the warrior within each of us on life's battlefield. I'm your host, Lindsay Taylor. Here we stand with those on the front lines of their own lives, those battling suicidal thoughts, addiction, grief, and life's hardest challenges. We honor the loved ones standing beside those struggling and remember those we've lost. Each episode, we delve into raw, unfiltered conversations and stories of people who faced the darkest of nights and emerged with healing, transformation, and hope. Together, we will navigate the battlefield, focusing on the battles that save and restore. This podcast is more than stories. It's a rallying cry, an army of soul soldiers reclaiming the light one story at a time. Together, we rise. Hello, Soul Soldier Speaks community. Today, I have a guest that Brooke, when we met, we met at an event in Phoenix called Success Codes. And we had some time to go out after the event on Friday to dinner. And you and I sat across from each other and we ended up talking. I feel like we closed the place down. We talked for like an hour and a half. And Brooke, just hearing your story it so deeply touched me, I left that night and I was driving home and I just didn't even have words. I just felt everything that you said so deeply inside of me. And I'm like, everything you've been through is so important to like my life's work and mission. And just the fact that you've been through, honestly, the depths of hell and have been able to rise above and do what you're doing today is incredible. And I was just so inspired. I was so inspired. So Brooke, welcome to the Soul Soldier Speaks podcast.
Oh, thank you, Lindsay. It was amazing to meet you in person and to be able to connect. And as soon as I met you, I just knew that we had to collaborate somehow. And this doesn't do it justice. This is just the beginning, I think, for us.
For sure.
Our missions are so aligned, and it was just so amazing to just let you witness me that night and to allow me to share my story with you.
Oh my gosh, for sure. Same. Like I know that we are meant to do something together. And so, yes, this is a wonderful start just to have you onto this podcast so that others can hear your story, because I walked away feeling just so deeply touched and, like I said, so inspired. And so my hope is that somebody listening to this will feel touched and inspired, and hopefully a life or two or more will be saved, right, through listening to this. So, so I'm so excited to have you on. And I always like to start my podcast with, tell me who Brooke is. I just want to know like who Brooke is. Aside from your struggles, tell us who you are.
I am someone who just loves nature, the outdoors. I always have. I've always been very intuitive, wise soul is what everyone just told me when I was little. Oh, you're such a wise soul. And I spent my like elementary recess days walking circles outside, observing how children interacted with each other. So if that doesn't tell you anything, weirdo. Not weirdo walking the playground again. I would just walk. And I would just walk circles around the playground and I'd watch all the kids play. And I thought it was fascinating how we interact with each other. And I think like now everything I know now, I'm like, that was such like a nervous reset activity for me. I needed the break from the people. So I just observed the people. And I'm a mom of 4 and I homeschool, and I've been married for almost 14 years, and I have an amazing husband, and I know that is quite unique when you get into my story. My husband doesn't like to be praised for sticking around because that's what you do in marriage. We chose for better or worse. And I was like, yeah, but not everybody actually means that when they say it. And so he gets so much recognition from like my therapist back in the day and people just like honoring that he stuck around. And he just feels so displaced by that because he doesn't feel like there should be any recognition for something you should do. And that just sets the foundation for just that solid belief and trust that I could have in our relationship. And God is just like at the center of our relationship as well. We met, did not know each other, and met and were married in less than 10 weeks.
That's wild. When you tell me that, that's wild.
Yeah, we just knew. And then we had a honeymoon baby because we were told that there was no way on earth I was going to have kids.
Wow.
So then we were just thrown right into it. Anyway, that's Brooke.
Wow. And when you told me about your husband, I thought the same thing. And I get it. It sounds like he's just such a just humble, amazing man. And yeah, so when people hear your story and everything that he walked alongside, he truly lived out the for better or for worse. And I love that you said not everybody means that. And I think we all have the intentions of that, right? I think everybody has good intentions going in, but life is hard. And sometimes we struggle to ultimately get through some of those really challenging things. So yes, kudos to your husband. When you were telling me your story, I was also inspired by him. So I want you to take us back to the moment that everything began to unravel for you in your life. Let's just start there. Like, when did things begin to unravel?
I think really it began to unravel after the birth of my fourth son. I did have a faith transition between my third and fourth child, which is important to note, but that didn't really feel like an unraveling. That felt finally an understanding of God. So I was raised Mormon or LDS, which really go by neither now, but I was raised Mormon and we were married in the LDS temple, and neither of us questioned that upbringing. And just like in a blink of an eye, all of a sudden, it was like presented in front of us on just totally out of the blue. And ultimately, we had our own faith journeys, and we came to just believe in a relationship with God over a religion. And that is important because I think if I were still under my religious belief systems, I would have never survived the unraveling. Because there was no hope in me being perfect enough, in me following everything, because I couldn't even keep my own head above water, let alone take care of my 4 children outside of any religious responsibility that I felt burdened to. And I'm just going to take you right to the closet.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go. And I forgot to preface. I think I was saying that our missions are so deeply aligned, but you struggled greatly with suicidal ideation, postpartum psychosis. So I know we're going to get into those things, but yeah, just to give the listeners that was like a deep struggle for you. Yeah, let's get into it.
The first time I realized I was having psychosis, which I didn't actually know I was having psychosis yet, but the first time I realized I was having some type of hallucination, he was 10 days old. And I kept my mouth shut, and I was like waiting for my husband to acknowledge my hallucination. Like when he points it out, I know it's real. And he didn't. And I went to bed that night. Okay, that was just weird. One-off thing. You've just always been terrified of being murdered. You're just freaking out. You're postpartum. It's fine. But I wasn't fine at all. And it got worse and worse. And it just doesn't make sense because I was so suicidal and I was so terrified of being murdered at the same time. Like, it does not even make logical sense because I wanted to die. But I wanted to die on my terms, not be like shot or stabbed or murdered. I had 4 boys in 5 years. So I had the baby, a 2-year-old. A boy had just turned 4 and a boy had just turned 5. And I would stalk my husband on my phone not to be like a weirdo, but because I wanted to make sure he had left his last job site and was coming home. And I'd get the kids a sippy cup and a bowl of snacks, and I'd take them to the basement. I'd line them up on the couch and put blankets on them and kiss them and tell them I loved them, and I'd put on a TV show. And I'd go upstairs and I'd nurse the baby and I'd burp him and change him and I'd strap him in the swing. And I'd go to my bedroom and I'd lock the door. And I'd go to my bathroom and I would lock the door. And I'd go to my closet fully intending to time ending my life with my husband being home within a few minutes of it, so my children would not find me, my children would not go untaken care of. And God always intervened. Every damn time. I would get so mad. I'd go to the closet and I would just sob and be like, I want this to end and there's no way out. There's no way out of this darkness. It's not ending. And God would always intervene. It was like I had this tug of war of the demon inside of me and my mother inside of me. My baby would start screaming like he'd fallen off the swing or something and hit it in his head, like just outrageous scream that he doesn't make. And the mother in me would have to answer him. And so I would leave the closet, I'd unlock the doors, I'd come out, just red, puffy eyes, and he'd still be safe in the swing. And I'd have to pick him up. And I'd have to pick him up and I'd have to comfort him and take care of him. And then my husband would be home. And it was just every day, it was just this repeat of holding on to the last thread of hope. Okay, it's almost nap time. Maybe nap time will bring me relief. It's almost like we can sit and watch a movie. It's almost time for my husband to get home from work. Maybe it will bring relief. It's almost bedtime. Maybe it will bring relief. And it was like this crazy cycle because nighttime didn't bring relief. Nighttime brought anxiety, nightmares, terrors, PTSD. I wasn't sleeping. And then I would do the same crazy cycle in my head all night long. Okay, maybe the sun rising will make this magically end. But the sunrise wouldn't change anything. I just now had to get out of bed and take care of 4 humans. And I just lived in this brutal cycle. And I would sob almost every single morning my husband went to work. And he couldn't understand why. But I didn't know if I was ever going to see him again, because I didn't know if I was going to have the strength to get through that day. And when our son was 6 months old, I finally told him I was really depressed. I didn't tell him I was suicidal, that I'd actually gone and almost attempted suicide a lot of times. So many times. I just told him I was really depressed. And he's like, knew like something was off. We decided I would wean my son. And up to this point, weaning him was something I wouldn't contemplate because if I was his only life source, then it would help keep me here. But being his only life source added so much stress to me because he had so many food restrictions. He was born with a lot of allergies. And so it took quite some time for me to find a formula that he wasn't allergic to. And then we weaned him. And then I was just like, okay, I'm just going to hold on. Like maybe weaning him is the magic key, the magic bean that's going to take this away. But it wasn't. And then it was my son's birthday. And then my husband decided he would quit his day job and he would do full-time real estate. And I was like, okay, he's going to be home more. Maybe him being home more is the solution. And we decided to move house to lower our monthly bills. And I focused on packing the house and then unpacking the house. And then it was my next 2 kids' birthdays. And I can't ruin their birthday month. I can't be that mother. And then it was like spring. and we needed to put a yard in our new house. And I just like full on dedicate myself to putting in this yard like a workhorse. And I was all like, we need to dig a hole under the sidewalk. This sounds like the perfect project for me. You hold the baby. And like I just stuck the baby in the pack and play or the stroller or on my back, and I would baby wear him, and I would just work because I was literally fighting demons I couldn't see. And it was a losing battle. And come the end of that summer, I had to finally tell my husband what I was dealing with. It had been going on for a year. Our baby turned 1, and I knew I could not get through another winter without being honest with him. And so I couldn't tell him to his face. I didn't know how. So I wrote a letter to him. I'm pretty sure it was like 2 pages front and back of everything I was going through. And I folded it up, and I stuck it in my bedside table drawer. And at that night, when we were in opposite bedrooms from each other, tucking kids in, I texted him and I said, we need to talk tonight. And he was like, okay. She never texted me that before. And we get to the bedroom and we shut the door, and he's, okay, so what do we need to talk about? And I open my bedside drawer, I grab this piece of paper and I throw it at him, and I just start sobbing. And he opens it and starts reading it. And it's literally just like pouring out my soul about how I think I have postpartum psychosis, and that I have been having hallucinations and I haven't been sleeping, and I have PTSD at this point, and I am terrified of my own shadow. I want to die. I have tried to die so many times, and I can't carry this alone anymore. And I can't do another winter. And he just looked at me. He put his hand on my knee, and he was just like, it's going to be okay. I will get you through this. And it brought such comfort because he is such a rock. He is the opposite of everything I'd ever known about men growing up. He is so patient and loving. He is so kind. And he just did not flincher. He was just so rock solid through it all. Like, he didn't blink. He was just like, we're going to get you through it. And it took months of us calling places and trying to get help and trying to get a therapist and it was not straightforward at all. And ultimately, my son's 18th month, when he turned 1.5 years, I got hospitalized for postpartum psychosis. And I was hospitalized for 5 days, and I got medicated. Saw a psychiatrist there. I saw a therapist. I had already started seeing a therapist outside of the hospital. And when you get out of the hospital, my golly, everyone just thinks you are fixed.
Oh my goodness. I just have to pause there for a second and acknowledge that, because we talked about this, and I see so many people that are hospitalized, and hospitalization, I think there's sometimes a misconception with what that entails or what that means. Hospitalization is just stabilization. It's not actual treatment. It's not actual help. It's just stabilizing the person who's in imminent danger, essentially. But I think that there's this misconception that the hospital fixes people, right? That it heals people. And so I have so many clients that come out of the hospital, and if anything, we know that people are 1.5 times more likely to attempt suicide after discharging from a hospital because of that. Because I think they go in hoping to be helped, healed, all these things, and they come out sometimes feeling more hopeless and helpless. And to your point,
I did.
It's huge.
Yeah. I came out and I was like, I'm alive, but I think it did more damage.
See?
And
More harm than good.
And it really was, because they weren't set up to take care of a mother. I was in there with people detoxing from drugs. I was in there with people with gender identity crisis. I was in there with people who were not there because they were suicidal. There was only 2 other people in the whole unit that was there for suicide. And I was just like, all the group therapies and all the things they did, like none of it was applying to why I was there. I was just like a really burnt out mother who hadn't been sleeping for 7 years and who needed to be told, it's okay. Yes, your thoughts are crazy, but you're not crazy. Normalize what I was going through. Because psychosis, going through the extreme of postpartum psychosis is a little uncommon, yes. But mothers all the time feel like they hate their kids, that they don't love them, that it is. If you are a mom who's thought like your baby screaming and you saw an image of your head of you like shaking your baby, like it's not uncommon to think that. The difference is you're rational enough to know you're just frustrated and that you would never do that to your baby. Like with psychosis, I was not rational enough to know that I wouldn't do that to my baby. Even though I wouldn't, I never did. I never harmed my babies. But anyone, even someone not in postpartum depression, can have those feelings of, I hate my child. What did I do? Take him back. I want to run away. Those are all like normal motherhood feelings. And they aren't spoken about. So when a mom has them, she all of a sudden goes, oh my gosh, what mother am I to think this? Like, and I felt like a horrible person when I came out. And I was so embarrassed that I had been hospitalized. And then the few people that knew I was hospitalized, it was like they were there for support, like for maybe 2 weeks. And I was like, I wasn't even getting into my own psychiatrist for 4 weeks. Like I was just a zombie. I had no feelings. I didn't miss my kids. I didn't like my kids. When I got home, it was like, oh my gosh, there was like such emotional disconnect between me and them. They were so excited to see me after not seeing me for a week. And I was so numbed out by my drugs that I felt nothing. And that hurt. I wanted desperately to feel that I missed them and that I wanted them because I wanted to know that I was not a broken mother. But I was a broken mother, and I just needed someone to tell me that that was okay. That it's okay, that there's not really a whole mother. There's no such thing as a perfect mother. But I was doing the right things, you know?
Oh my gosh. This is where I say like your story is so powerful because I think some of the things that you were just touching on, people suffer in silence with, right? And the fact that going back to just initially when you were talking about going an entire year before you even told your husband, that you were having these suicidal thoughts. So you lived an entire year in the darkness alone. I mean,
Completely.
yeah, and to this is why I always say, this is why this is called Soul Soldier, because I genuinely believe people who battle suicidal thoughts, battle addiction, like to overcome those battles, like to overcome addiction, to get through another day when you don't want to live. Like you were just describing, like you just had these little things throughout your day. Okay, maybe it'll get better in the morning. Okay, maybe tonight. Okay, my husband's going to be home. Or you were just like grasping onto any little thing for like relief.
Grasping
And
at straws.
And ultimately you never even really got to that relief, but somehow, some way you made it through another day. And to make it through another day when you don't want to live, to me, is the most courageous, strong thing. And at the time, you obviously might not feel strong, but think about that. Like when you look back at that, right, you're like, man, the fact that I made it through that, how did I make it through that? And so that strength is just insurmountable. And I always say, I don't think it's any different than somebody battling cancer, for example. Like when we look at cancer, people who battle cancer, we call them fighters. They're survivors. It takes an insurmountable amount of strength, right, to get through those treatments and to come out the other side with a positive attitude, even, right? Like people who battle cancer, I think it's a very similar battle to those who battle suicidal ideation, to be able to fight
Yeah.
through that.
And I think what's so interesting about my story is I then went on after becoming stable, after the months of therapy and the multiple attempts of correct medication, I then did become stable. And it was 6 weeks after becoming mentally stable that I went into my chronic illness journey. And so
I wanted to talk about that
I
because,
really
here
can
here
speak
you
to
are.
both sides.
Yeah, like here you are had just gone through this postpartum psychosis and just this deep desire, like suicidal ideation, right? Like just wanting to escape. And then, yeah, let's talk about that. Now you're faced with chronic illness.
Yeah. So over a week span, I went from being a long distance runner, fairly healthy, had been having a lot of increase in headaches, but that was my only symptom. And then over the span of a week, I started to lose my thoughts, lose my train of thought, notice short-term memory loss, couldn't finish sentences, would start to speak very slowly, then very robotically. I had a crazy migraine. I then started to lose feeling in my limbs. And by the end of the weekend, I was in complete paralysis. I literally could see my feet moving in my head, and I couldn't get my feet to move. I'd see my arms moving in my head, and I couldn't move my arms. I'd open my mouth, and I couldn't get my voice to work. And then to be hospitalized for imaging and all these things, and for have a neurosurgeon come in and say, oh, it's all in your head. And to know this time that I actually wasn't crazy. To know this time in my being that there was a real thing here that he was refusing to look at because of my diagnosis from earlier that year. He said, I saw you've been an inpatient. I think we just need to send you back until you learn to get over this. And again, my husband, so grateful for him. He said, we looked at each other and laughed. And he just said, no, you can discharge her or I'll sign an AMA, which is against medical advice. He said, I will take her home against medical advice. I will sign the paperwork and we will figure out what is actually wrong. So we want a copy of her imaging and we want to be discharged, however way you prefer. And he took me home that night. And my ability to move my arms and to speak would come and go depending on how long I'd been laying down, basically. If I'd been laying down very still, sometimes I could talk robotically. Sometimes I could move my arms or I could bear weight on them, but I had no feeling in my body at all. Like the doctor took the pin and poked all the way up my body. I felt nothing. And the next morning, I just remember waking up and needing to pee so badly. And I was like, this is the weirdest thing. Like, I've got an atomic bomb headache in my head. I've got to pee really bad, but I feel nothing on the outside. It's just the most bizarre feeling. And my husband was so peacefully sleeping. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to wake him. Like, we've gone through so much. So I decided I was just going to roll out of bed. So let's see if my arms bear weight right now. And I just keep thinking to myself, like, I did not just survive postpartum psychosis for that long to give up now. I did not survive the darkest, hardest freaking battle of my life for paralysis to take me out. This is easy. This is easy. So I rolled out of bed, somehow landed. Basically, I got into an army crawl and I used my arms and I just dragged my body across the floor to the bathroom, pulled myself up and turned around. And then When I got down and across to the bathroom sink, I pulled myself up, holding onto the sink, onto my knees. And I locked my hips forwards. And I was like, oh, okay, with my hips locked, I can like balance here for a few minutes. This is my day. Then I'm going to get ready. And I just washed my hands, washed my face, put on makeup, straightened my hair as if nothing had happened. And my husband was still asleep. And so I scooted to the stairs because my bedroom was on the second floor. And I picked up my legs and I literally put them one step down at a time. And I scooted my bum one step at a time all the way down the stairs to be on the couch to greet my kids that morning. And I will tell you, if I had to choose 2 years of fighting chronic mental illness, like severely, or the 5-year chronic illness battle I had where I lived at a level 10 pain for at least the first year of it every single day and was bedbound, I would choose the second. I would choose to go through the chronic illness because it is easier. Because people can see it. People can't see the mental illness and they could not help. People were willing to help me when they could see that I was walking on forearm crutches in a neck brace and that I couldn't drive and that I couldn't take care of myself and I couldn't feed my kids. But when they couldn't see my battle, they couldn't help me. And when they can't see my progress, they could see my progress. Like, so to skip ahead, ultimately, I was diagnosed with instability in the skull, neck, and lower neck, upper spine. I was diagnosed with Chiari malformation. My brain was falling out of my skull, and my skull was falling off my neck. I was diagnosed with a genetic degenerative disorder, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or EDS, where my ligaments stretch out and don't come back together, so my muscles hold my body together. So ultimately, I had collapsed so quickly that week because my muscles gave out in my neck. And my brainstem was just being compressed and couldn't communicate. So when I got in the hard neck brace, it able to stabilize my neck a little bit. I was able to talk in my neck brace. I was able to regain control of my muscles, but I still could not feel my body. So I learned to walk with forearm crutches and stuff, but I had no feeling. I was still living in paralysis. I then would just go to my doctor and say, I need these images done, and I need to go to this state to get these images done because my state doesn't even have them. And so I would travel for these images. Ultimately, it all led to me needing to go to Barcelona, Spain, in the middle of the pandemic in 2020 to get my head screwed on. And as people saw my journey and saw my surgery and saw my healing, like they could visually see progress, right? They could see, oh, she's getting this surgery, she's getting fixed, and now she's updating, like now she has feeling in her body, and now she can walk, and now she can do this. Like they could see progression of healing, and they could see where it plateaued and things, but you can't see that in mental illness. You can't see any of that. And people would ask me how I'm doing even 2 years after my surgery. And they were like, I lived in a neck brace 4.5 years. I haven't even been out of a neck brace for a year. And so my illness went from being completely non-visible to people to like in your face. Back to back. And I experienced the contrast of how people treat you when they can see your illness and when they can't.
Oh my gosh, that's so powerful. It goes right back to what I was saying with cancer and then the battle to live, and how when we see somebody with cancer, we can see it. And so we're like, oh my gosh, that person is so strong. Wow, what a strength it takes to get through that. What a fighter, what a survivor. And when you can't see it, people don't see it that way. And I think like
they don't understand the strength
because
it
they
takes.
Can't see it. Because you're right, because you can't see it. That's the problem. You can't get inside somebody's head. we can empathize. I can only imagine what it's like to want to die every day and have to continue to like try and survive another day. But unless you've been there, unless you felt that, you don't know. And then sometimes even when we have been through it, we just walking around in life, we can't see it. And oh my gosh, like that just depicts exactly what I'm saying right there, right? Like you're saying, I would have chose the battle with chronic illness. And that was, you just did a very brief version of what you went through with that. That was a battle, right?
Yeah.
Like alone, just with the chronic illness and the
And it was
surgery
5
getting canceled
years.
and yeah, like that. You went through a ton with that. And I think that alone, like that battle alone. So I want to acknowledge people that struggle with chronic illness. I work at a suicide treatment center, and we have had clients who that's their reason for wanting to die is because they have this, And I think that we have to acknowledge that, because I think that is a very real struggle that leads people to want to die, because they're like, I don't have a quality of life that I want to have. I think for you, with what you're saying, is you had went through this mental battle, this almost like just being disabled in your mind.
Yeah.
That really, truly, and just deep depths of darkness, which I think sometimes the battles in our mind is worse sometimes than physical, but our physical battles can then lead to the mental battles, right? Like people that feel trapped in their physical battles can lead to that. So it all plays into each other. But I just think because you went through that and such that depths of darkness in your mind, that the fact that you had something to compare it to, almost like the physical illness to that. Had you not been through that battle, the physical illness might have been much harder.
Yes. And that's what I always say. I always say my postpartum psychosis actually prepared me to handle my chronic illness as well as I did. Because people always were like, how can you be so joyful through this? How can you keep like such a broad perspective? How can you not get stuck in this mind spirals? And I was like, because I did not just survive psychosis for this to take me down. For that same pattern to happen, I worked too hard. So I had all the tools from therapy, right? And I implemented those. But many people I know with chronic illness do suffer from suicide ideation because their life does not feel their own. They don't feel like they have control over it. And I empathize with them because I know that feeling. And I would have felt like that from my chronic illness journey had I not gone through it first. But I had built up the mental muscle to be able to handle it mentally.
Yes. And I think sometimes, again, I don't want to take away from people that struggle with chronic illness and the suicidal ideation that can come from that, because I see
it's
how
so
that
real.
is. Yeah, it's so real. And why it's so real, because if you're confined and physically you're limited, I can see why that would feel like wanting to escape that. But ultimately, I think being a prisoner to your own mind, like mental pain, there's like a different type of struggle that comes with mental pain and being like a prisoner in your own mind versus a physical ailment or illness or condition. It's almost like if mentally you're okay, then it's like you can handle the physical piece, right? If you're strong up here, you can handle this. If you don't have this, then what do you have? Because this ultimately runs everything, right? Like it's so interesting. Yeah, that really did set the tone for you to be able to handle the chronic illness that you went through.
Yeah, it really did. And it sent postpartum psychosis was so incredibly hard to go through. And my husband was a saint. Like he went to therapy every single week with me after I was hospitalized. Not like really for him, but to support me and to show me that he was supporting me in healing. And what that ultimately did is that really protected our marriage for the next phase of hard, because we learned a lot about communication in those therapy sessions, even if that's not what was intended. Like we learned so much about ourselves and our marriage and how we were working up into that point and what wasn't working anymore and why the psychosis went so long without treating, because there was a breakdown in my communication. I didn't know how to communicate how I felt. I wasn't taught that. And so when we were going into the chronic illness, we handled it differently because now we had the tools. Now we had the skill set. Now we had the practice. And I don't ever go without telling my husband, even if I'm just like depressed from hormones or like PMS is really bad this month or something. Like I don't ever go more than a couple hours without letting my husband know how I'm doing if I am not doing great. I don't. Be like, I just need you to know so we're on the same page. I'm having a really hard day today. And what I need from you is A, B, or C. Like, I'm feeling this. If you could do this, that could help me. Or I just need a listener today. I don't need a fixer. I just need you to listen to what I have to say and to be felt like I'm being heard. And so it's just changed how we communicate. It's changed how we do life and marriage. And so I think it really protected our marriage through the chronic illness.
Yes, yes. I love that you're pointing out how gaining those tools was huge for you in the next chapter. And so for somebody who is in the middle of postpartum depression, psychosis, whatever it is, just the thick of like deep struggle, deep depression, suicidal ideation, what would you say to them? What advice would you give them?
First, I want them to know that any variation of postpartum mood disorders are normal. Your thoughts don't make you a bad mom. And just because you're thinking them does not mean you'll act on them. I had a lot of thoughts I never acted on. I wouldn't have all my children with me today if I had, right? So just because you have a thought does not mean that thought is yours or that you will act on it. You don't have to personalize it. You don't have to give it weight. But please seek help, however that is for you. If it is your spouse is your safe person, if it's your mother, if it's a best friend, the most important thing is it will cycle and feed and grow until you give it a voice. Because once you give it a voice, it breaks the chains it has on you. It breaks the chains. It breaks the shame. Please make sure they are a safe person first, that you can trust them with such sensitive topics, okay? But don't overthink it, because reaching out for help is the most important thing, that you are ultimately reaching out for help, because giving it a voice is the first step. And that is when people can help you, because we can't see inside the head. We can't see inside your mind. There are signs. My husband saw me crying when he went to work. There will be signs, but they can't know the depths. But when I was in a neck brace and crutches and I could barely stand, those are very visible, and people would bring me food and people would help with my kids. But when I literally couldn't even breathe from my mental anguish, it hurt so bad, there is no signs for anyone else. Give it a voice and just say, I need help. I feel this. I'm scared of this happening. I'm scared I'll do this to myself. Either I have suicide ideation and I do not have a plan. I just need help. I need to get better. Or I do have a plan. I do not plan to act on it. I want help. Get me therapy. Get me medication. Those are just tools. Therapy and medication does not mean a lifetime. Even for me, who had psychosis, right after that, I was actually on 6 or 7 medications, because I was on medications for PTSD, for the nightmares, to make me fall asleep because I couldn't sleep from the PTSD and nightmares, for mood stabilization, for anxiety, for depression, all 3 separate things. And now my baby turns 8 this year. I didn't get on medication until he was almost 2. And as of right now, I am on 1 pill. I am just on a mood stabilizer for how extreme my PMS still is.
Oh my gosh. I love,
like, there is so much hope. I want my story to be a message of hope, because Brooke fought, survived, advocated. So can I. Because Brooke survived, so can I. And not even that, I want to tell you where I am now. Because right now, I homeschool 4 boys by choice because I feel like God asked me to, but by choice. I am active with my boys, not only mentally, but physically. I engage mentally with them and I engage in physical activities like we swim together, we bike together, we hike, we walk. I mini golf with them all the time. We swim all the time. We go on walks like every day. I get on the playground with them again. And not only that, but I have found joy in motherhood again, which is something I thought I would never experience. I literally thought that I was doomed to never feel joy in motherhood again. Like it was like something broke in me in the psychosis. And I went from loving motherhood, not feeling fulfilled by it, but loving motherhood, to resenting the shit out of it. And I couldn't give them back. They were already here. And I had to work. And this is like something they don't talk about. Like I spent years healing myself emotionally and spiritually to find joy and love in motherhood again. But I will say it is there and it is beautiful because I went to the extreme, the other direction. And so it is ever so sweet on this side to love my children full-heartedly out of choice. Because for me, it was a choice to choose to love them again. To choose to not, it is not their fault, but there was a point where I was a victim in it to myself, right? And I had to see that my son didn't cause my psychosis. His birth was just the trigger. He's not responsible. These are steps you go through in healing. And I got to the place where I found myself one day so overwhelmed with love and gratitude for my children as I was scrubbing dry poop off the white tile floor. I kid you not. Okay, 4 boys. It just pee and poop all over the place, and I just don't understand how. I don't. But I found myself in so much gratitude and love to serve my children in this way that I literally have an Instagram reel or post video story. I think it was a story, but I saved it of me scrubbing their bathroom floor saying, I once resented motherhood and I love it so much right now. And I'm so in love with my children and so happy and feel so much joy that I am pausing scrubbing poop off our bathroom floor. And I am telling Instagram about it because you have to know. You need to know that this is possible for you again. That if you've experienced the extreme, this extreme is waiting for you. Because you've gone this extreme dark, that means you can go just as opposite in the light. That is a gift of the darkness we face, is we get to experience joy and love and gratitude more deeper, so much deeper than the general population. It is a gift of the darkness. We get to experience the equal opposite. And if you don't go that dark, then you don't feel joy that extreme. You live in this window. But because we go this far, we get to go equally and opposite just as far in joy and love and richness of relationships.
Oh my gosh, that is just beyond powerful. I talk about this idea to purpose to pain, right? And I think that when we walk incredibly tragic and painful and dark and hard paths, right? Like you said, the beauty on the other side of that is you appreciate life in a totally different way when you've been to that extreme. Exactly what you're saying. It just, your perspective on life is so different. And so that's what I think I agree with you, that if you're in the depths of darkness, you need to know that there is hope and that on that other side, you're going to experience the light of life in a way that you never thought possible, right? Because you have been to that depths of darkness. And so that's huge. And I love that you said one of the biggest pieces of advice that you would have is to give it a voice. It's huge. We have to share. We have to talk about it. Some of what you're talking about right now is when we suppress our emotions, it just stays buried inside of us and unhealed. And all that does is keep us in the darkness and keep us stuck and keep us in the illusions and the lies and all these things that keep us stuck, right? And so I love that you say, give it a voice. So we need to talk about it. Lean on support system is huge. You had a very supportive husband. So find somebody in your circle that can be that support for you, because we can't do this alone. We can't. You need that person or that community, people around you. And then, like you said, you did therapy, you did the things to dig deep into that healing. So it sounds like, would you say part of ultimately your healing journey was dealing with the emotions that had been suppressed and all the things that were inside? Or what was like the key piece in therapy that helps you do that emotional and spiritual healing that you talked about?
I think that I did deep work in therapy, right? But it was actually so surface as for how deep I ended up going. Like, I went to childhood. I handled motherhood wounds and fatherhood wounds, and I handled like self-relationship wounds, and I handled abuse wounds, and I handled so many things, and I did EMDR, which was wonderful, huge advocate of that myself. But then ultimately what I teach is that chronic illness is from trapped emotion. Because my chronic illness, I analyzed this for so long, like, why did I collapse after I got better and after I dealt with so much trauma? And what it was, my nervous system finally was out of fight or flight. It was out of the freeze in this intense warfare, and it relaxed. So I collapsed. And that's why it was only 6 weeks after. And then I went so much deeper. Yes, I had the real problem that had to be addressed. I had to get rods and screws in my head to hold it up. Very important. But I know people who've been able to bypass surgery and heal, because the body just stores trapped emotion and trauma and your weakest point. And for me, that was the head and neck, because I had head injuries and neck injuries. And then I had strain of pregnancies and stuff. So your body is just going to store the trapped emotion and trauma in your weakest point. If you've broken your arm, it will be there. If you've had knee issues, it will be there. And I lived in chronic pain for so many years, even after my surgery. And I thought, why am I in so much pain still if my surgery is done and it's healed? And it was for like a couple things, but dominantly, I was still storing so much trauma and unprocessed emotion in my body. And I had taken care of some like really big things, but I hadn't taken care of a whole lifetime. Because if you remember, I couldn't communicate feelings at all with my husband. I didn't know how.
That's that suppression of emotion. Yeah.
I had a whole lifetime of everyday suppression
that
had to be addressed, that I had to release. And sometimes you need to know what it is, and sometimes you don't, but your body knows. So even now, one of the things I teach about handling chronic pain is your body knows why. Even a migraine can have a reason behind it. And it does. I once was slipping into a bath for a migraine, and I asked myself, why do I have this migraine? And at this time, I had already written my book, and it was in editing. And I was like, why do I have this migraine? And all of a sudden, a memory popped up. My husband was about to leave the house for 3 days. My husband had not left me with the kids since one time right before I was actually hospitalized during postpartum psychosis. And I was left alone for 3 days with the kids, and 3 of our 4 kids choked on the same dinner, and I did the Heimlich on them, all 3 of them at the same dinner. And it was like quite traumatic. My husband was about to leave the house the next day for 3 days, and I was not in a bad place mentally or physically anymore. But last time my husband left for 3 days, I was. And my body was remembering how traumatic that was. And it was causing me to have very real symptoms to try and stop my husband's trip. All I had to do was acknowledge my body. I thanked it for remembering. I thanked it for trying to protect me. And then I reminded it that I'm actually not in the same place anymore. That was many years ago. That was like a 5-6 year gap. And that now I am a healthy, whole person, that I take care of myself, that I implement self-care, that I implement nervous system care, that I process my trauma, that I have great communication with my husband, and that I'm excited for him to get away. Right? And after going through this process with myself, my headache that had been knocking me out all day was completely gone in 1 hour.
Wow. Wow. It reminds me of the book, The Body Keeps Score.
Oh, yeah.
So good. Talks about,
So
yeah,
good.
so good. So I highly recommend that. Books can be life-changing, right? That's why
Right.
we wrote books.
That's
Books
why
are
we wrote
awesome.
them.
But that book really talks about how our body keeps score of these traumas and how we store them in our body. And exactly what you're talking about is so huge. So for somebody dealing with chronic illness, what would your advice be to them?
Work with me. I host retreats specifically for chronic and mental illness, where I just take you through the processes that created the most healing in my life. I have gone back and I've analyzed, where did I have miraculous jumps in my healing journey, and what did I do? How can I make that teachable? I'm also about to release a chronic illness healing course, where I literally take you through the same things, because chronic illness affects everyone and healing is accessible to everyone. You actually already have everything you need to heal inside of you. You just don't know how to tap into it yet. And that's really all I teach: how to align your mind, body, and spirit so that your body can do what it already knows what to do, how to do it, what to do to heal. My conscious brain was what was keeping me sick, because my conscious brain loops and my subconscious brain loops. But when I could get those two out of the way and work with my divine spiritual self, my spirit and my body knew how to heal. They already had the blueprint. I was in the way. And one of the things I really teach is, if you are having chronic pain, ask your body, what is it remembering? What is it protecting you from? Or what is it punishing you for? We really love justice, and our bodies will punish us. Okay? So I throw that one in there. So it might sound crazy, but have a conversation with your body, because your body knows, and you'll either hear words in your brain, or words will pop up, or memories will pop up. I have it all ways. I either see the memory as a video, I see a sentence in my head, or I hear a single word. And it's always spot on. So know that, yes, you can heal no matter what you have. And if you don't believe you can heal, then yes, you're correct. You can't heal, because you'll stay locked in your logical brain. Just be open to, why can't I heal? Why not me? Why not me? Okay? So just ask, why not me? And then ask yourself, why am I in this pain? Body, what do you know? What do you remember? Where are you protecting me from? Or what are you punishing me for? And have a conversation.
Wow. Do you guys see why I love Brooke? I'm just listening to you talk and I'm just soaking in all of this and just so moved by just everything that you've done to take all of this pain and all of this struggle and ultimately to say, this is a choice, and I decided to finally deal with what was going on in my body. And I do think sometimes we don't realize, when we're stuck in the middle of our darkness, in the middle of our pain, we don't realize we have a choice. You know what I mean?
It
I think that can
feels
be
like
hard.
you don't.
Yeah. Right. And yeah.
There was a time I would have punched someone for saying you have a choice.
Right,
so if that's your feeling, it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I was there.
That's what I was going to say. We have to acknowledge that it's not always easy, when you're in the middle of that, but look at what's possible. And I think this conversation, and Brooke, you sharing your story and everything, you can see that, yeah, I was there. I was in the middle of that deep depths of darkness, and look what is possible. And I think that then maybe when it just takes, and you said this, opening our hearts and mind just a little bit. We have to open our hearts and mind just a little bit to the possibility of healing and choices and all of this. And I love that you're bringing this back to the body. Like when you came home to your body, I feel like so many of us, myself included, I've struggled with this so much, being disconnected from my body. Our bodies, if we can go inward, oh my gosh, it holds everything. It holds the wisdom and the knowledge and like our bodies alone hold it all. It's really powerful. So what is one truth about healing that you hold very sacred now that you didn't believe when you were suffering? So what do you know now that you would have not believed when you were suffering?
That everyone can heal. I firmly did not believe everybody could heal when I was in it. I thought healing was unique. But what I know now is healing is actually your birthright, and that healing is 100% possible because it is actually law that if I healed, you can too. It is a law of the universe. It's a law that is governed. And so I am not a unique unicorn. It actually means it is law that you can heal too, and that it is just getting out of our heads, aligning our mind, body, and soul that does it. Your body is the miracle you've been waiting for. It actually is. It already has the blueprint. Just think about, like, women don't have to consciously think about how to grow a baby. The baby just grows. You don't have to think about how to heal a broken bone. The bone heals. Our body already knows how to heal. We just need to get out of the way.
We need to get out of our own way. Get out of our own way. I'm doing this coaching program right now that talks about the human beings and that they're two separate things. So we're human and we're being. And it talks about how the human is our mind and our soul and the being is our spirit.
Yes.
And so what you talked about too, like when you aligned yourself, because we need to heal our souls, but ultimately that's done through aligning with the divine and spirit.
Yep.
Like those things all have to intersect. And so what you're
Yes.
talking about, mind, body, spirit, like those things all have to come together.
I write about it as the divine heart in my book. I write about your divine heart. And I refer to that as like your spirit, your soul. And so we all are connected to the divine through our divine heart, which holds our soul.
Oh my gosh. I have to read your book still. I have not. So I want to talk about that. So I want to talk about the work you're doing, your book, where people can find you. So first of all, you have your own TV show coming out.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about tell us a little bit about that and what you're doing, because people need to know how to find you, because I think you're going to save so many lives through this work.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I am going to be on Legacy Makers, hopefully being released in the summer of 2025. I have already filmed it. It is in editing. So that's very exciting. And you can find me through Instagram or my website, and we can link everything here. My Instagram is live_even_with, because one of my strongest beliefs is we headbutt everything in life. And when you stop the headbutting and you learn to live with something, that is the first step in healing. It is taking the fighting against and the going with. And so you can find me on Instagram, on Facebook. You can buy my book on Amazon. My podcasts will be releasing soon. I am just recording the first season and getting through editing and stuff. And I know people are eagerly waiting for that. I keep having people message me. And I do take you through some of my healing practices on there, because I firmly believe that everyone should have access to healing and that everyone can heal, and that money should not factor into that. And so I really do take you through processes on my podcast, and I will do the same thing, but even more in depth in my course, because healing needs to be accessible for all.
I love that. And then you mentioned the retreat.
Yeah.
You're hosting a retreat. Can you tell us a little bit about the retreat?
Yeah. So my next retreat is the end of April, first week of May. It's really like you arrive the last night of April and you wake up and it's May. So really the first week of May. And it's in Southern Utah. You can find all the information about it on my website, but it's Ember Effect Retreats. We talk about how a coal, just a spark of fire, can be blown out by a wind, or that wind can be the oxygen that sets this little spark into a freaking bonfire of passion for life. And I'm passionate about it. And I just teach so much of just how I healed mentally and physically, because I really do consider myself fully healed both. I am actually ready to start coming off my last medication. I feel completely whole, and I live literally the best life every day now. I am the co-creator of every day of my life. I wake up and we recently moved 4 hours away from where I used to live, and I couldn't have imagined that ever. I never thought I'd be healthy enough to leave my medical team I had created there. And it's just, I wake up and I'm so grateful. Every day, it's just a brand new slate to work with God, to work with humans, to work with my children. And I am so blessed. And so I am just really passionate to teach all the stuff that I have figured out along the way, on purpose and in hindsight, looking back, 2020 vision of what kept me stuck, right? You don't need to suffer for 5 years like I did. No need. And those who've been in chronic illness often have been suffering for many, many years before they start making progress in healing. And so the retreats are geared to give you community of like-minded people that also believe in complete healing, to give you success stories to fuel your faith, to give you practical daily short practices to align yourself with healing. Because if it's too long or too hard, it's overwhelming and it won't get done. I really keep all my practices to 10-minute increments a couple times throughout the day. It's really so simple. We've overcomplicated it.
We do. We often do that as humans, right? In our human mind. That's the lovely part of being human. Oh, Brooke, I mean, gosh, I could talk to you for 2 hours, and I think people could listen to you and learn from you. There's just so much that I would love, so many pieces of what you were saying that I was like, ooh, we could go deeper there. Ooh, we could go deeper there. So I'm going to have you on again. We're going to have to do part 2, because I just, this is so incredibly helpful. And I just hope that to you guys listening, that you hear Brooke's message, her biggest message, that healing is possible for everyone. It's so true. That is a truth that we all need to hold on to. So thank you, Brooke, for being just the light. Again, you wouldn't know this light if you didn't know this darkness. And so if somebody's out there in the darkness, the light is always there. It's just waiting for us to find it, turn it on. Because ultimately when we find that light and we illuminate it, the darkness can't even persist, right? Kind of what you're saying, I feel whole now. There isn't even any space for that, right? And that doesn't mean you don't struggle. This is the funny thing. You're talking about how you feel whole and complete, but I shouldn't say funny thing. That's not the right word. But doesn't mean your life is struggle free, right? At all. That's never going to happen. That's not part of life. But we learn how to. You have the tools now and the skills to be able to live even when life is hard, and to be the light even when the darkness is there. Those things can coexist. So. Brooke, thank you so much. It's just been an honor to have you on, and I love you so deeply, and I'm so glad our paths crossed.
Oh, me too. Thank you, Lindsay.